Well, hello, my name is Mark Frisconi. Hello, my name. We need to mute everybody. Nancy, mute, please. Getting a lot of feedback. Okay, there we go. All right, sorry about that. Hello, my name is Mark Frisconi, and welcome to Sat Chat Live. This is a live stream where we wrap up the week in coverage on the candidacy of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. This conversation is a product of daily discussions held in our volunteer Discord server over the past week. If you would like to be on our live panel, please join our Discord server today. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is running to become the next president of the United States in 2024. He is the son of former U.S. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy and is the nephew of former President John F. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy emphasizes priorities of clean government, civil liberties, peace, and economic revitalization. Above all, he invokes a theme of unity. In his announcement for the bid of presidency, he said, "During this campaign and during my administration, my objective will be to make as many Americans as possible forget that they are Republicans or Democrats and remember that they are Americans." Strongly committed to civil liberties, Kennedy emphasizes the importance of honest government and freedom of speech. So, we are here today to exercise that freedom to discuss what is true about this remarkable man. Welcome, viewers and guests, to this next edition of Sat Chat Live. Hello, Carly. What's up for today? Oop, I think you're muted now.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So I'm really excited today because this is our second live stream. We're starting to get our act together a little bit here. We're still getting some tech glitches, which just happen sometimes, but we will get better. And we are a grassroots organization, and our goal is to do everything we can to channel all the enthusiasm we have about what Bobby Kennedy is saying and what he represents for our country, and how can we turn this into our reality. And it's not going to take just one person to do that. It takes all of us. living that way, and that's something that we can start right now. And so today we've got a lineup of 8 different topics that we're going to start by talking about who is Bobby Kennedy and why does he seem so authentic. Other politicians are so well rehearsed, they've really got their stuff down, but there's something about Bobby Kennedy that people are just mesmerized. And it's because he's talking to them, and he never uses a teleprompter, even for his big speeches. So we're going to start with that of what made him be like this, in his own words, a video clip on that, and then we're going to go through what is he like in action, and rather than doing what other people, this is a clip of him at the border, and just what does he do that you've never seen a politician do before. Then we're going to go through some more things just about him and some of the things he's fighting for that are current events this week, and talking a little bit about his relationship with the media. He's got a good relationship with him. They do not have a good relationship in their attitude toward him. And both, how do they all act together like this? And second, he's done some speeches on that. And also, what are we doing as volunteers to combat that? So our first story is really, we're going to be looking deep into Bobby Kennedy and his what makes him so strong is how he managed to handle an addiction problem when he was young. He was a young guy. His father was killed. His uncle was killed. And he had all these great visions, great teachings. And then what did he do with that after going through his teenage years of trying to figure out who he was? And here's his story.
I started taking drugs soon after my dad's death. I started when I was 15 years old. I didn't like being an addict. I wanted to stop. And that's when I picked up this book called Synchronicity by Carl Jung. Jung was a disciple of Freud's, and they were kind of the co-fathers of modern psychiatry. Jung says people who believe in God get better faster, and that the recovery is more durable than people who do not. And so I just said there's God up there watching me 24 hours a day, and that life is just a series of tests. And every day is broken to about 40 different decisions. And I invested each one of those decisions with a moral dimension. For example, when the alarm goes off in the morning, do I stay in bed with my indolent thoughts, or do I jump right out of bed and get the day going? Do I hang up the towels after I get out of my shower? Or do I say, that's somebody else's job, I'm too busy for that, I'm too important for that? But 6 weeks after I got sober, my life began to get big quickly. And I was running through National Airport, and I was late for a plane. It was mission critical. I had to be on that plane. And as I was running, I was putting a stick of Dentyne in my mouth. And I pulled up the wrapper, and I was running past a trash can, and I threw the wrapper, and it made a perfect right swish into the middle of the trash can. But as I was running past, I saw I must have hit something in there, and it bounced back out. And I said to myself, well, that's God's fault, because I made the shot. And maybe 40, 50, 60 steps later, it just started eating at me. And I finally put the brakes on, and I went back and put the wrapper in. I did make the plane. But for me, probably the most important thing I did that day was to put that wrapper back in that trash can, because staying in that posture of surrender, even when the cash and prize are flowing into your life, is the hard part, because my inclination is to say, thanks God, I got it from here, and then take the wheel and drive the car off the cliff again. And the challenge is, for somebody like me, it's how do you stay in that posture of surrender? What I find is when I do the little things right, that God takes care of the big things. Addiction is about ultimately abusing power. And we're all given certain powers. You have the power to make people laugh. People have education, they have connections, they have money, whatever the power is. The challenge, even as the power amplifies, is how do we make sure it's not being deployed to serve selfish ends, but it's, being deployed for some higher purpose. If you like this video and you want to help me become President of the United States, go to Kennedy24.com and donate now.
That's such an incredible clip. Yeah. And, just to see who he is. Yeah, I'd love to hear just a little something from each of you of what it is that you thought about while you were listening to that. Rochelle, are you ready?
Yep, I'm unmuting now. So what struck me about that was when he talks about the idea of God, he is describing like surrendering. Like he always does it in the context of surrendering, and it's such a like humble way to discuss God or anything spiritual or religious. Or I don't think we see that in politics. Whenever religion comes up, it's not normally expressed in such a humble way. It's like a means to an end, means to a political end. So I find it to be like very genuine. It moves me. That's what moves me about that clip.
Anybody, if you've got a response after I've called on somebody, go ahead. But I love what you were saying there, Rochelle. And the idea, like even in the Republican debates, it was like, I'm a Christian. I read the Bible. But they never give anything personal.
Yes.
Hey, don't give away
or what does it
Republican
mean to him?
debates. Don't give
Go
away
ahead.
don't give away the Republican debates. We're talking about that a little bit later.
No, I'm not going to do that. I didn't
I'm
figure
kidding.
that
Spoiler.
piece.
Well, so I was listening to that, and there was a couple of things that struck me that I thought, I like his spiritual message. It does really resonate. I actually, what's interesting is that I wasn't especially, I don't think, an especially religious, definitely not religious, but especially, tuned to spiritual matters when I first ran into Mr. Kennedy's candidacy, and all of a sudden I kind of am, because it's hard not to resonate with it. What he talks about, like synchronicity, I've heard before. It is really an amazing idea, and it happens. It happens to all of us. We have a meeting actually in our Discord group, and I want to give us a plug for that. That we have every week. We have a little talk about synchronicity. It's a topic Mr. Kennedy likes, and so it's something that our members, seem to enjoy talking about too. That little hand of God that reaches in and just kind of like, how could this possibly be this thing that happened? And so, I like that. And the other thing that during his that talk was his 40 things. I want to count, because I think there's a lot of them that I'm not real happy with. Like, I don't like gravity. I hate gravity. I'm always fighting with it. It's like stuff falls off tables. I'm mad. I gotta, that's good advice. Maybe I gotta quit being, mad about those things.
Anybody else have a comment?
Yeah, I feel like he's always learning, and he gets by being humble, he gets the big picture, kind of like, we're all in this together. I'm just this one little person. And, he gets the whole, like, we're all in this together, and the view from the top. So does that make sense? And the addiction thing, my mother died. She was addicted to alcohol, and that's what killed her. And I really, like, anybody who can recover, well, you're always recovering. Anybody who can beat that just signals to me like how strong they are and how much more they see of life. And I'm not necessarily, like, I'm not Catholic. I don't believe in a Christian God, but I think there's something else out there. And just there's so much that resonates with me. But that, like, just somebody who is recovering is just such a strong person, and he's so humble, and I love all that. I just love that. And that he's handing it over. He knows there's something bigger out there. I mean, no matter what you believe, I believe there's something greater out there. And that's just, it all resonates with me. I just think he's just a genuine person. First genuine politician I've ever seen in my life that I've paid attention to.
People who have been through addictions are always saying they are recovering, even though he's been, in my mind, recovered for 40 years. It's a process of being, rather than, well, I'm everything I needed to be when I turned 40 and I don't need to change again. It's always an evolution. Who else wants to talk? Anybody else have anything on this clip? Because the one piece I would love somebody to comment on is his part calling it that addiction is abuse of power. Yeah. I thought that was a particularly interesting way of looking at it.
Well, I'd like to comment on that aspect on it, in that, and just forgive me if I get too far into the weeds on kind of the conceptual science behind it, but our cognitive function is supposed to serve to override our impulses so that we don't do anything that threatens the longevity of our life. That's how it evolved. And so for that to basically subvert its own power and allow the impulse to drive your decision making instead of that cognitive side, you are abusing your power. It's similar to letting the fox into the hen house intentionally. You have access to the gate, you have the key, and you're just letting something in that's going to destroy everything. And so I agree with him wholeheartedly when he says that it's a form of abuse of power. It's abuse of a power over power of your own self-agency.
Wow, that was really well said. And I think another thing is when he has that close, so much scrutiny on himself of his own power, and it's the exact same mentality that he puts against abuse of power elsewhere, which I think is really important. I think maybe we could lead that into our next topic about how Bobby Kennedy is working with the border. He went there, but usually when politicians go down there, they've cleaned everything up and everything's perfect. So when they come, it's going to be a beautiful show of how well organized machine they are, so they continue to get funding. But that's not who Bobby Kennedy goes to see. He's talking to people, boots on the ground. Who are the people who are attending them? And pay attention if we get that part of the clip of where he's actually talking to people who have come through the border. He wants to listen to each part of it so that he has a real idea of the actual problem, not just somebody's hearsay of, well, here's how you can fix it if you just give me some more money. Why don't you go ahead, Mark?
Yeah, so what we have is a tweet that came out from Mr. Kennedy back earlier this week. Mainstream media hasn't gotten the wake-up call yet, but this ABC affiliate reporter, Mark Phillips, is paying attention to my calls for a secure humanitarian border policy. I'm going to put the cartels out of business. And so then what we have is a link, and I have to share that screen 1 second. Technical difficulties. And sure.
Yeah,
All right, here we go.
There, you ready?
Yep. I have to share each screen separately with this. And so there was an article by this reporter about, and he tended to agree. I mean, it'll be hard to go through the entire article here, but he tended to agree with Mr. Kennedy's policy. And we've seen his Midnight at the Border video. It's an hour and a half long. It came out in 2 segments. A great video about what
Is that available on Kennedy24.com?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yep. And Team Kennedy's YouTube page and their Rumble page. And so a lot of sources. We have it also on our Discord server. We serve all the Kennedy content that's out there. So if you need to find it, you can come check with us. But this article was, in agreement with Mr. Kennedy's policy. One of the things that they noted down there at the border was that it wasn't just people from Central and South America coming across, but people from all over the world. And the thing that Mr. Kennedy, the pro-border thing is very, it's real popular across, the aisle, political aisle. But the extra element that Mr. Kennedy likes to inject is that, we got to take a look at also the reasons. And so I guess that's, where I'll leave it for discussion.
Okay, what is the primary? First off, could you put a link to this article in the chat for anybody who can see that? I'm not real sure who all gets to see what's in our stream chat.
Well, yeah,
there's links to all these on our Discord server, and please join us. We'll be posting the link intermittently here. And so, is there somebody who wants to go first on this one?
Yeah, the border thing is, it resonates with the Republicans. I think it's a good policy. It's not just, build the border. I mean, one of the discussions we had actually last week was the fact that, President Trump had come in and, as a campaign promise, started operations on building the wall in certain sections. There's been a lot of discussions over a 1,200-mile section of wall, whether that makes sense or not. Trump came in and started building, and he had this wall that would be buried into the ground deep enough to try to prevent some tunneling. And so then all that stuff was purchased and laid, in the areas where it was going to be deployed. And then when President Biden took office, they came in, and because of his change of policy and change of idea. I don't know, how to characterize the thinking is that they came in with a different type of fencing that was actually a little bit less secure, didn't go into the ground, that type of thing. And then they sold off the sections of fencing that Mr. Trump or President Trump had purchased for pennies on the dollar. And then they started putting up the less secure fence, which was being actually ordered immediately after construction. And so, the politics involved in this is, kind of massive. It's like masks and everything else. We politicize too many things. And really, we do need a humane policy, because when you start hearing about the things that are taking place down there, the victimization of people, the cartels, how they're using people to just, to traffic drugs. It's just, it needs to be stopped. And, we can do better, and we haven't. That's the problem. And Biden got elected saying he would.
Okay. The one thing I think you pointed out when you were first saying this is, why are so many people coming over? And Kennedy has said, when we're out there making life miserable with our military bases in all these different countries, forget how many different countries we have military bases in. If instead we were spending much more effort of trying to make their lives more livable where they are, nobody really wants to go change their country unless it's so bad you feel you have no other option. And people are, some of the people he interviewed, it's like, I sold all my house and all my belongings so that I could come here. That's really, you're unhappy and you feel that you have no options where you are. And he goes back to John F. Kennedy's presidency, where he built the Peace Corps with the idea of, rather than sending guns into all these countries, let's send and help people educate how to get their water, their electricity, all these things, not for us to buy it for them or loan them money for it, but to teach them how to do it and to fund it themselves so that they will be good neighbors and we can be good neighbors to them. And that I think is so much more effective long-term than putting up walls. And the same thing goes when you get to the drug problem. All this fentanyl coming in. People are taking it, but people don't take drugs when they're happy and feel successful in their lives. It's when they feel overwhelmed, anxious, no idea what they can do, and disempowered. And it's a way of, at least I have power over how I feel. If I take this drug, it will somehow make me feel less victimized, or other things like that. And again, if we can address the root cause, which Kennedy keeps mentioning, very specifics, things that we can fix that will change the entire atmosphere, so we're not just stuck in, which country should we put in more guns in than the others. Instead, let's have relationships.
Well said. Go ahead, Andrew.
Well said, Carly. The border wall situation, specifically the incident or the incidents where they are selling off the other wall components for pennies on the dollar, to me is a really strong signal for what happens when you have no unity of effort behind solving a problem, and when the actual efforts to solve a problem have become politicized, it's just by nature going to result in massive fraud, waste, and abuse, which is exactly what happened here. Is that's fraud, waste, and abuse on every level and through every definition. Is they took readily available materials, and simply because someone from another political party had paid for it, decided to get rid of it at a loss to the taxpayer, and fund a less secure wall and supply it with inferior materials. And this touches on Kennedy's message of unity. Like we need diversity of ideas, and we need to have strong debates when it comes to deciding what to do. But once the decision's been made, we need to be unified as a government, as a people, behind those efforts so that they can actually be deployed and be effective. And that's part of what's resulting in this country starting to fall apart, is that so many issues have been politicized in areas that they shouldn't be. Like efforts are being politicized fraud, waste, and abuses occurring because of it. And I think Kennedy's message to unify doesn't just apply to the people unifying to try to change the government, but it applies to unity within the government itself.
Okay, one thing that you made me think of in this, I love what you said there, but we are, as American people, the presidential candidates are basically showing us like they're in a job application, and we're trying to decide, are you the person we're going to hire for this job for the next 4 years? And we have to look at them, in this case, talk about how do they make decisions. And the group that is making a decision, let's take this expensive, high quality material that will actually go 10 feet into the ground and block people from digging under the wall, versus, I don't like him, I'm going to buy my own stuff and I'm not going to spend so much money, but it's not going to do the job because people can dig under it. What kind of decision-making process is that? What kind of attention to money spent if you're going to sell the other stuff off at a discount? So, are these people we want to hire to be our president or to be our presidential team? And I think that's really important too. So, any more comments on this, or are we ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah, just one. To me, it was a physical representation of the nuance that needs to be had. And how things like either we're going to have the wall or we aren't, like both sides, there's one extreme or another. And this just focused on how there needs to be a little bit of everything. Like maybe, walls in parts of that border are good. And maybe, some we don't need the wall, or we need smaller, shorter walls or whatever. So to me, it was just I liked how it was a physical representation of what is going on. And I was happy to see that there was another solution to the border, crisis, because it's a huge crisis, and people are coming into this country because, like you said, Carly, they don't have it good in other places. They are not happy. It's not just that they're coming to try to steal stuff or jobs and stuff. So.
And I like Kennedy's compassion to these people coming over and seeing them all as they're individuals trying to make their life better for themselves and their families. Are we ready to move on to South Carolina? Just a little more upbeat is just, they've tried, the Democratic Party's trying to say, oh, Bobby, you might win these first two states in Iowa and New Hampshire, so let's go to South Carolina where Biden's going to win it. But look at the splash Kennedy is doing there. Particularly, is this a video clip or?
Yeah, it's a short clip of him speaking, but it's also kind of an indication of some of the positive coverage he was getting down there. So he made a
let me just say one more thing. Please watch the audience while he's talking. That normally everybody's half looking at their cell phones, looking at things, listening, maybe writing something. Every person is mesmerized. He has their complete attention, which I've never seen with anybody speaking before to that degree, unless it's somebody's big hero that they've been waiting to see. And that's just part of the relationship and the effect he's having on people. Okay, yours, Mark.
All right, here we go. So yeah, this is a little clip. He made a multi-city stop down in South Carolina, and he got a lot of great press. I mean, this is not the only clip, but this was a Fox clip. Let's take a listen.
Morgan was sentenced to 7 years in prison, suspended to 3 years behind bars, plus 3 years probation.
When you decide tonight, Democratic candidate for president Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in the upstate, he spoke with voters in downtown Greenville. Now, this is part of Kennedy's speaking tour across the state. Tonight, he was at Zen on Main Street for a town hall, and over the weekend, he had made stops in the Low Country. At tonight's event, Kennedy was asked for his response to people who call him a political outsider.
I think people are criticizing me for departing from some of the orthodoxies that the other candidates have endorsed. I'm somebody who's an outsider. I'm coming into the political system at 40 years of fighting on behalf of individual Americans against this corrupt merger of state and corporate power.
Now, tomorrow, Kennedy will be in Greer for a small event, and then he'll hold another town hall in Spartanburg tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, like you said, Carly, there wasn't anybody looking at their cell phone in there. It never is when he's talking.
Yeah, we've got so many topics. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this one. Does anyone have any comments about things they've seen with him in South Carolina?
All right. So yeah, that was like I said, he got a lot of great press on that coverage, which is nice to see because I mean he's starting out. He's had a uphill battle against the blackout, and and the local channels. I think in all fairness, I think you see more good stuff. I think way back when he did that first speaking event in San Diego, he got some good coverage from the local channel out there. So maybe that's the key. Maybe the local channels are, I don't know, but they're still owned by the big channels. I don't know why.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you look at the numbers that alternative media are getting, what Trump did on the Republican convention night he had like 66 million viewers or something, and the network got 12. And so these are just magnitudes of difference. So the alternate media is doing a huge part of this. But they started by saying he's anti-vax, he's a conspiracy theorist, and that's running out of steam. There are just so many times people are going to hear that because the minute you listen to him, you recognize that's not who this man is.
Well,
and that is not what he stands for.
Well, that's what'll be our job here, and everyone that's listening is to get this type of information out to their friends, distribute clips that come from the campaign, so that people can see what's really being generated by this campaign, and not what the mainstream media is trying to tell people.
Yep. So really, if you can get one clip of him talking for 1 to 5 minutes, that's about all it takes for people to say, okay, what was that word that I think Michael had said? We had they all let me see if I can find this real fast.
Okay, well, I'm going to get
him. People admire him, whether they agree with him or not, rather than having these media clip names on them, like a 7th grader making fun of somebody. Instead, they go, I admire him. I may not agree with him, or, oh my God, I got to hear more. And there's a lot of both, but I'm hoping there's going to be a lot more of like, I got to hear more, because there's a lot he has to say that deserves to be listened to.
Well, so yeah, that actually reminded me of that last campaign stuff that we actually live streamed in Discord, if you want to see. And he, one of the campaign staff were walking through the crowd in advance of the event and talking to people, and there were a lot of people who were there like, oh, I'm a Republican, I'm just here to hear about this guy. And the worst thing that they said about him was that they admired him.
That's what I was going to bring that up, actually. Just an exercise in positivity, or if you feel like the media is attacking. Something I did one day is like just put in quotes, admire RFK Jr. or admire Bobby Kennedy. And that's a way to like bypass Google's blocks, I guess. And you can see all of these people that are, sometimes it says, I admire, but at the same time, that word, that admiration, is widespread. Like I think it translates as genuine.
That was a brilliant move to do searches if you want to see what people are really thinking. Put the words next to it. And Rochelle had come up with that. I attributed it to the wrong person.
Oh, no problem.
And I thought it was really cool, and to see that really is so strong. And we can see this passion. Every day we've got a lot of text chats on dozens of topics, and then we also have daily live chat like this, along with a lot of just pop-up conversations in the voice rooms where people sit for hours sometimes and discuss different topics or watch videos together. And it's just amazing to hear the passion, and also the type of people who are being brought into this campaign as volunteers. The volunteers are people that really believe in this. And despite the name of Discord, that is not what's going on our server. There's a lot of discussions. People don't always agree by any means, but there's an openness, and all these people that we felt to the sidelines because we're not buying into what's been going on, and yet it gives me really faith that we as Americans can build something we really want to live with, and the type of impression that we always thought our country stood for and what we want to be. So we can go from this to something totally different. How about the term forever chemicals? Does that sound like something you'd want or not? Mark?
Yeah, let's get this started. So this is based on another tweet from Mr. Kennedy this week. EPA weighing expanding the list of PFAS chemicals to regulate. These are called forever chemicals. Kudos to Tennessee River Keepers and 87 other organizations for taking a stand. There was an attached article. Actually, before we get to the article, I did do a little bit, because not everybody knows what a forever chemical is, and so we'll get a little background on it. Forever chemical is a term for per and polyfluorinated alkyl substances, PFAS, are a member.
Okay, wait a second. Okay, they have fluoride, you said, and what else?
Polyfluorinated alkyl substances.
Okay, so it has types of fluoride in it, and then alkaloids, which is another type of chemical, and probably all bound together. So it's stuff that goes into the water that nothing breaks down, which means once it's there, it stays there. Sort of like mercury and lead when it gets into our body.
Right. And so there's 4,700 of them that they know about.
4,700?
Yes. And so just a little background. I live in Minnesota. 3M is a company that's here. They had this stuff called Scotchgard. You sprayed it on everything, and it kept it from getting stains. Yeah, that apparently turned out to be a forever chemical. Minnesota is now covered in Scotchgard. So interesting.
I had no idea that Scotchgard was dreadful.
Me either.
I mean, if nothing sticks to it, it's not surprising.
Yeah, you might want to take a look at its properties and think about. Yeah. So anyway, so it's on a lot of stuff, right? And it's legal here still. And so this Mr. Kennedy was retweeting an article where the EPA is taking a look at a place in Tennessee where they might actually expand. Now, this is another thing I want to coach a little bit here too. Is that all right? When they talk about like detecting or they talk about like this is the limit that you can be exposed to, and this is the limit that you can't be exposed to. It's only because they can't detect it below that limit. That doesn't mean it's safe. It's just like, well, there's no practical way for us to test it, so we can't make any laws about it. And so when they talk about like let's lower the limit, it means that maybe they found some equipment that can test it at a little bit lower level, and that's kind of where so none of these chemicals are really safe, and so that's kind of the problem with it. Anyway, so there's an article here. I just thought maybe I'd toss that out now for discussion.
Okay, Rochelle, do you have something? I mean, I just saw you blink your microphone. I thought you were.
Oh, I need to share
that. I will provide a comment that this a lot of Bobby's work in cleaning up the waterways, in identifying chemicals that are unsafe, has been delegitimized and marketed as propaganda a lot of the time. And I just like how this legitimizes his efforts and his message as far as environmental preservation.
Yeah, I agree on that. Is this a clip, Mark?
No, this is just the article that was attached to the tweet that Mr. Kennedy sent out. There isn't a clip, but there's a pretty good article of information. I will put this in the chat as well for anybody that wants to read it.
And please contact us either if you're not a part of our Discord server yet. You can also put it in the comments of whatever platform you're watching on, because we're being broadcast to a number of different platforms, and we will go through those and try and post these links after the show is over, so that you can take a look at some of these articles, because they're quite interesting reading, and will start to make you understand the magnitude of some of these issues. And I think that's one of the things he is doing. And the reason I think everybody, whether you agree with him or not, should be listening to him is he's bringing up a much broader base to these ideas. It's always, do you want abortion? Do you not want abortion? Do you want guns? Do you want, and they're all, 1 to 3 word summary of an issue. No issue is that simple. And they all weigh in on a lot of different ways. And without overloading it, he brings in how this affects you personally and your community and the planet. And because he loves all of those. And it's the easiest way I've found to actually understand a lot of these issues, so you can talk intelligently rather than just quote what you heard somebody else say.
I've got some insights on PFAS as well to add in. I'm going to kind of wing it because I didn't really think about a way to structure what I was going to say, but so cut me off if I start rambling. But a real world example right here, this water bottle. If this water bottle sits out in the sun, there's certain compounds that they combine with the plastic that makes it flexible, squishy like this. So like the laptop, the plastic that makes up my laptop here is really hard and rigid. If I tried to bend it, it would break. Well, if they add certain compounds, and in this case, the compounds they add are PFASs, when they add those compounds to plastic, it makes it flexible and bendy. So it serves different purposes. In this case, food storage or water storage. Anytime this water bottle sits out in the sun or is exposed to even mild amounts of radiation, say you sit this thing next to your Wi-Fi, and this kind of goes in with what Kennedy talks about with our phones. That's emitting a form of mild radiation. And what happens is that radiation, when it penetrates this plastic and passes through it, a lot of times it can come in contact with one of those compounds that are basically acting as a hinge between the hard plastic molecules that allows it to flex. And so what happens is, like, you'll have a rubber tire that sits out in the sun too long, it starts to break down and crumble. Well, that same thing is happening with water bottles, with food storage container, anything made out of flexible plastic. So anytime that radiation passes through, it kind of shears off that that molecule that they're using as a hinge between the plastic particles, and it gets into whatever it is you're consuming. In this case, it's the water bottle. So if I left this out in the sun or next to my phone for too long, it's going to increase the rate at which those forever chemicals get inside of whatever it is you're consuming. And when they get inside of your body doesn't have a biological mechanism to flush it out. Our body has mechanisms to flush out all sorts of toxins, but because these are not a toxin that our bodies evolved around for very long at all, probably just the past couple hundred years, it's not something that's adapted to flushing out of it. And so that's why our body can't get rid of it, and they start to build up. Now, I know specifically in men, these compounds can be recognized physiologically as estrogen. And so when a male is exposed to too much of these forever chemicals over a long period of time, certain physiological effects can start to manifest because men and women have very similar levels of estrogen. It's just that men have higher levels of testosterone on average. And so what happens is when you begin to increase the estrogen levels, it's not really how much estrogen or testosterone you have that kind of determines where your physiology tries to grow. It's the ratio between the two hormones that kind of dictate in utero whether or not you come out, or whether or not you have more masculine or feminine features. And so what ends up happening is as the estrogen, the artificial estrogen from the forever chemicals builds up in a male's body, and it disrupts the female's body as well. But that's something I haven't done as much research about because it's a little bit more home to me because I'm a male. So as these forever chemicals start to build up in your body, they'll start to disrupt your physiological functions that require that ratio of testosterone to be in balance. And so it can lead to depression. It can lead to decreased testosterone production, infertility, decreased muscle mass, decreased bone density, as well as a whole other assortment of different things, anxiety, difficulties regulating emotion. And so the effects of these things are already kind of widespread because we can't even measure them, and we haven't even determined what their toxicity levels are. And we're already seeing the effects. So to me, it's kind of one of those things that it's a really hot button issue for me.
Well, that's a beautiful explanation of it. And, making it of like, okay, why does it matter? And while you were talking about the water bottle there, the idea is, okay, I'm always going to keep my bottles in the dark and keep them in the refrigerator. You don't know where that bottle's been. What was the heat in the plant when it was made? Did a delivery guy leave it out in the sun for a couple hours?
Right. But something to really think about here, and this is why you guys see me drinking this bottle of water here. And this goes to touch on Kennedy's larger points about environmental contamination. Nobody in this country can drink clean water right now unless you get it from a bottle, and then it's still likely contaminated with PFASs. But if you drink even filtered tap water, there was an independent study that was conducted. I fail to recall the study. I'll have to look it up and try to find it. But they studied 90% of the different municipalities across the country and found that on average there were 89 compounds, not counting these PFASs. I think those are probably some of them are on that list, but definitely not all of them, because they said there's 4,700 and they're pretty much everywhere. But they tested the water supplies of these municipalities, and they found that on average there was 89 compounds found within the water. A lot of them pharmaceutical compounds, like a lot of birth control, for example, is one of them, that aren't even being tested for and haven't even had like a toxicity level determined yet. So drinking the tap water is a worse alternative to drinking the forever chemical contaminated water. It's almost inescapable. So it's definitely one of those things that needs to get looked into and resolved. And I'm really on board with Kennedy when he talks about that kind of stuff, because it's ubiquitous. It is across the board.
Cheryl, do you have anything to add on this?
First of all, you are a walking encyclopedia and very well spoken. I always learn stuff when I listen to you talk. You should do little mini, seminars. But anyway,
I think he is.
I think he does, and we're the ones listening. This is a subject that makes me crazy, because I work in a health food store and people there are microwaving in plastic, and to me that's horrifying. But nobody's getting this, and that's part of the frustration for me. Is even Kennedy's talking about these things and he's dead on, and people are just like, that's part of the thing. Well, no, that's not going on. It's like denial. So this is a big issue for me. And even though I see you drinking the plastic out of the plastic, and I'm sure you're absolutely right. I cannot bring myself to do it. We have tap water, and we're always just the fact that somebody had to produce, we need to stop using these things so they'll stop producing them, like plastic bags, for example. If we stopped using them, they would stop producing them. Well, in my state, they're illegal now. That you can't use the single-use plastic except for meat and stuff like that. But if we stopped using these things, they'd stop producing them. But then you're drinking out of that plastic because you're afraid of the stuff in the groundwater. We can't get away from it. So we have to do what we feel is the lesser of all evils.
So this is where Mr. Kennedy talks about, the part that I like about his environmental, idea about what environmental protection means. When you have products like this, these forever chemicals, that we are now subsidizing whatever profit they made off of that chemical when they made it, right? So they made it, they dumped it, it's in the groundwater, they're gone, they're spending their money, they're on their yachts, whatever. And, now public, we have to deal with it. And Kennedy talks a lot about this. He talks about it with regard to nuclear energy and a lot of things. We just, we have to think harder about what we allow, to be done. And so that, we got to, in our mind, realize, these things have larger costs.
And with the whole situation that happened with Bud Light and other companies, where a large group of people have pushed back against a marketing effort, it does make a difference. And it seems like, well, I can't be the only one doing it, but it's like going to vote. It takes each one of us deciding to do it, and together we make the difference. And so it takes each one of us doing it every time we can. And then, what are the alternatives? I think we can get to that in another talk, probably, of how what else can you use if it isn't plastic? And we'll get to that later. Why don't we go ahead on to our next one, which would be the GOP debate. Before we start this one, I just want to say what a great time we had on the Discord server. Back in the late 90s, I was with a group of people who were like, what could people do with the internet that would be so cool? And it was like, let's watch something on TV, and then everybody can comment on it in text on the side. And then when there's commercials, they could like talk about it and real time when we're doing it. And we were doing this. We had a big group of us there. And watching those, like, Republican debate was grueling. I don't think I would have stuck with it. But it was really interesting, all the different discussions and ideas. So go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so of course, the Republicans had their debate this week. I did not stay up that late to watch it. I heard about it. I understand Mr. Ramaswamy was center stage and kind of the point of attack. He seems to agree a lot with Mr. Kennedy. I think there was a question about him. Anyway, after the debate, Mr. Kennedy produced a statement on the debate, and I'll read that for you now. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had this to say about last night's debate. The Republican debate last night was out of sync with the mood of the country. It began with a request for comment on Oliver Anthony's song, Rich Men North of Richmond. Now, that is an extraordinary song, raw yet intelligent, defiant yet compassionate. It's about working class hardship. It's about low wages, bullshit pay. It's about degraded food supply, elite corruption, obesity, homelessness, despair. The candidates could have talked about these things, but they said nothing about the desperation and hardship working people face in this country. They said nothing about wages, housing costs, food costs, child care costs, and medical costs, or what they can do about it. They said nothing about the systemic corruption that enriches corporations and the elites as swaths of the former middle class fall into poverty. Instead, they recycled Reagan-era cliches about cutting spending, being tough on drugs, crime, China, etc., and ending abortion. They were obsessed with America's adversaries, but blind to how our policies have been deliberately constructed to create adversaries and enrich the defense industry while bankrupting the nation. They were obsessed with closing the border, which I agree with, but have no proposals to expand legal immigration or address the conditions that drive migration. Again, in large part, that is U.S. policy. They obsess about cutting spending, except defense, they want more of that, but offer no innovative proposals to address the decay of our infrastructure, wages, and environment. Our nation deserves better than posturing and bickering, masquerading as debate. Instead of arguing, we can tap into the swelling popular will to turn this country around. Oliver Anthony has tapped into something that can unify our nation. Nearly everyone wants to reverse our decline, to end the corruption, to rebuild the inside. Let's talk about how to do that. And it just gives me chills to even read it.
I feel like you just took us to church.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I get from that. So well written. I just think it's exactly what's on everyone's minds. And I wanted to add to Carly, when we watch these things together, it's nice to be able to laugh. Like when you're watching them alone, it's just disheartening sometimes, and maybe you don't have anyone to point out like the absurdity.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. Everybody was trying to rein in the extreme snarkiness that one could do when you're listening to other people.
Absolutely.
And instead, we keep trying to be our best selves while still having fun with it. And we got into discussions of, look, each one of them brought out their red tie to show that they're powerful. If you looked over at Tucker Carlson, Trump, who's the front runner, wore a blue tie, which is, I am the establishment. I'm the one who's here, and you won't depose me. But then when he showed up for the hearing the next day and his mugshot, he had his red tie on then. And so we got into, kind of the language that politicians use and what color their suits were. And, Ramaswamy had the shiny tie and the black suit, which is a reflection of his, he's very concerned with appearances. And that's what, he's got youth and nice hair and, puts forth a nicer persona than a lot of people in terms of the male model aspects, but that's not what we want in a president, hopefully. And, we want somebody who's got substance. Ramaswamy's great with, I gave him credit for when they said, who's going to do this? And his hand's the first one up of like, I'm going to do this. He knows his points, but his points don't have any solutions. They're the same broad-reaching ones that we hear from every politician. Where Kennedy says, yeah, we got this problem, but let's look at it differently. What else could we do to make this a solvable problem? Because everything made by man can be solved by man. And I mean that in a generic man and women and all that stuff. So, somebody else want to add to this here?
Rochelle, what you were saying, I don't remember how you worded it, but like religious experience sort of thing. The joke in our house is, have you heard of our Lord and Savior, Bobby Kennedy? Like, because we're just we love him. And every time we watch it, I'm like, oh my God. Like, and then you get to a point where you're like, am I drinking Kool-Aid? But everything he says, it's genuine and he has solutions. Like, why isn't anybody listening to his solutions?
Well, I see this more as a resonance. Again, he's the leader, but he's not saying, I'm going to do this and
Right.
You're not. He is basically like, you've seen like where clocks will all, if they've got a pendulum before long, they're all swinging together.
Yeah.
And, or, you can sing and a glass will break because of the resonance, that we do align with each other. And he's resonating something with us, which it seems like the media and the culture has been trying to make us bury. And it's, at least for me, it felt like, okay, I'm not the only one feeling like this. And it's okay to broadcast it again, to talk about it, to say, can we ask these questions? Not any person knows the right answer. And even if we think we do, it's not going to play out exactly the way we plan it. But it will, if we're not thinking about it, and a group of us playing off of each other to keep us from going off track.
Yeah.
Because a group of people are always smarter than anyone. So, Mark, you had something?
Oh, yeah. Just a couple more comments on this, too. I having not watched the debate, there was one comment we had in our daily chats, which we do to lead up to this, about all the folks on the stage that Trump was not on, all had to take a Trump oath, right? If some sort of oath, if the nomination went to Trump, they would support him.
It's not, the oath is to the Republican Party that you will support the candidate who gets the nomination. And so that's how that went. Go ahead.
But it's, kind of like to Trump, though. I mean, he didn't even have to show up. He's like, I'm king, you come at me, bro,
Well, that one was funny. That was one of the really funny points in the thing, because they wanted to do a real gotcha question and said, so if Trump gets convicted and he's the nominee, will you still support him? And that's the place where Ramaswamy said, yes. The woman next to him, still looking straight ahead, was slightly behind him. Everybody else, and I think the guy next to her did also, the other ones were busy looking at the other people. And DeSantis didn't respond until the audience started clapping, and then his hand went up. And very reluctantly, Chris Christie's like, okay, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it was really, again, if you're looking for who are you going to hire for the job, do you want somebody who's waiting for crowd approval? Do you want somebody who knows what it is they believe in? And, it's, and no matter how somebody wants to throw a trick question, I love how Kennedy handles these trick questions. He'll just say, I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going down, you're setting a trap for me. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, he's a master at that. Well, the other comment that I had too was, and this was actually I was watching some takes on the debate. Kim Iverson, I like her. I watched it. I should throw her name out here, but she was saying, it's kind of like the old guard against the new guard, which Vivek represents the new guard, and then they had Christie and all these other guys going at him about their classic things, and so it was really a great juxtaposition, I guess, is the way she described it.
I really like that analogy because it kind of put a visual in my mind of like the redcoats marching in their straight lines, expecting to meet another army marching in their straight lines, and then all of a sudden they're surrounded in a ravine by a bunch of guerrilla warfare units, and they have no idea how to handle that situation. And that, to me, perfectly visualizes this grassroots versus the old guard methodology that we're seeing play out here. And this is where I think this touches on what I was going to say a moment ago about the GOP candidates and how it just seemed like they kind of just bombed the whole thing. It was a very rigid old guard march of candidates up to the front of the debate, and all of them had their own individual running points that they were running on, and not a single one of them were actually, addressing the underlying problems. And they lack, because they're so caught in that rigidity in that debate theme that they have set up, they lack the dynamic interaction. They don't even know how to have an open conversation with someone from the public because they're so caught up in their own political games, trying to win the opinions of the influencers within their political bubbles, that they can't say or respond in any certain way that's going to upset that mechanism. And so it not only that, but they're so habitually caught up in this, like presenting just their talking points, that they can't see the threads of connection between these things that Kennedy can. And this is what appeals to Kennedy so much to me, is that he's got this broad understanding of all of the cogs that go into play. And so when you ask him, well, how would you fix this? He starts seeing how all of those cogs start moving together. And he's like, well, we can do X, Y, and Z and talk to A, B, and C people at these places and get this done. Whereas this other politician has spent his entire career basically brown-nosing his way through the political system, and they don't actually know how to solve problems. They just know how to win favor.
That is brilliant.
Exactly.
You come up with such great insights, Andrew. The what I got out of that, in part of it, it comes down to who are you working for? And the people you were describing, they are working for those who are in power, and you curry favor and you brown nose to somebody who has power, and they might bestow some of it back to you so you can have power over somebody else.
I appreciate the kind words, but I'm standing on the shoulders of giants right here. I'm just a spooky voice.
Again, I'm just loving the ideas, and we talk like this every day on our daily chats and get such great ideas from each other. And it's all like we're synthesizing the reality that we want to be living in. And because, as I've said before, we all have, one man in the presidency is not going to be able to change things. Look what happened to Trump. He was there, and for the things he was trying to do against the same, the Biden type establishment, he couldn't do it because they were against him. But if all the people are living it, they don't stand a chance. This is the like what has happened against some of the companies when the people have said, no, we're not going there. And, it's, a lot of this is rethinking. They're trying to get everything into this dialectic of it's abortion, no abortion, guns, no guns. And there's no reason to stay in that dialectic or in that gradient, because all problems have 360 degrees to them. And there's a lot more. And I like what you said about the gears working together, because once you start a lot of pieces going, you get progress so fast.
Can I mention something real quick?
Oh, certainly. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so Mark, on that last thing you had up, you know, RFK Jr.'s response or his comments on the debate. One of the key things that I got out of that was he talked about, you know, he didn't say gas prices, but like gas prices, mortgages, rent, income. He talked about that guy's song. I should know his name, but I forgot. I forgot the name of the song, but a lot of people have seen like at least a clip of that, and it resonates with so many people. And you know, Cheryl mentioned earlier that, you know, RFK Jr., you know, she didn't say it like this, but kind of paraphrasing, you know, he's not full of himself. He really is like the real deal. He's very in touch with people. And like that's, you know, the kind of comment that he made in response to the to their debate about, you know, people are like struggling, like the middle class is fading and fading. You have to be in touch with Americans to know that. So like, I mean, obviously the Biden administration's completely out of touch. It doesn't sound like the Republican candidates are really in touch. I don't see Vivek or Vivek Ramaswamy or Ron DeSantis being as in touch with Americans as RFK Jr. Trump, I don't know. I don't know what his deal is. He likes his views and ratings on Twitter or X, whatever it's called right now. Maybe he cares about the American people. I'm not really sure. But RFK Jr. really, I think he cares more about the American people than any other person running for office this time around at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Agree.
Those are awesome. The you know, thank you for sharing that stuff. You know, it's there's such a difference there, you know, and I like, you know, Kennedy is in touch with people. He deals with them regularly. And even say Trump actually does care about the people beyond, you know, just, you know, his own ego or being in a position or trying to do the right thing. It is hard to relate to people if you don't talk to them, if you don't recognize them. I mean, that's one of the things here at the server, at the Discord server. We have people from all sorts of walks of life. You know, I come from Silicon Valley stuff, you know, and each person has a different specialty, different interests from all aspects of America. And yet it's amazing the brilliance, you know, what you know is not defined by what you happen to be doing to earn money right now. You know, it's just amazing the people that we're running into. And you know, you can't recognize that if you don't talk to people and really spend time with them. It's not, let me shake your hand and kiss your baby sort of thing.
I like the fact that I feel like if he doesn't win this debate or primary, he's going to keep going doing what he's doing. Like, this isn't going to stop him. He's either maybe run later on, but he's still got people to help and he's still got cases to fight. And it's not all about this race. Like, this is a big part of him trying to help people or trying to, you know, help everybody. So I like that about him too.
Well, and that's what makes me think that regardless of whether or not Kennedy wins the presidential election this cycle or next cycle or the cycle after, whatever, he's still going to be putting forth effort and tapping into these grassroots movements in order to impact and affect change in the country. And so, you know, whether or not it looks like he's going to win the election or not, he's got my support.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important, particularly through the primaries, because this is actually going to lead into our next subject quickly, is the idea that the establishment, the Democratic Party, and the media are doing everything they can to say you're not really a candidate, and which is not what our election process is supposed to be about. And that, you know, we are, you know, this is and he's waking a lot of people up in ways that he couldn't do just from Children's Health Defense and all the lawsuits that he's done and all the lawsuits that he's won to make our world better, to get mercury out of a lot of the vaccines, or at least start the process out of it. And now he just has all the other toxins that are in him to deal with. And, to get our planet safer, everybody's willing to contribute, but they keep trying to make it our problem that we caused the pollution, we did it, when it's actually coming from the factories and the larger processes. And, we have to get this word out and help through the primaries to get the most attention on the things that he's fighting for. I think are just so important.
Is there a list somewhere that's all the cases he's won, like sort of is that somewhere? Because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, we had a real nice write up on that in one of our daily chat meetings, and I don't have that available right now. But yeah, he's there's a dozen, 13, 15 cases that Kennedy is personally been a part of that have changed Americans' lives.
And these are the big ones, like against Monsanto. Against people polluting the entire New York waterways. These are huge things where New York now has the cleanest water after it was the worst.
Yeah, these are the ones where like everybody in the country, was affected. That kind of like that big.
And to have 14 of those is a big deal.
Yeah, and it's just another factor of why I'm such a strong supporter of Kennedy at this point, is that like he has a proven track record of bringing these offending entities to heel.
Well, yeah,
I like this, offending entities.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, so that's really the most impressive thing about him is that he's coming in with a complete understanding of what the power of the chief executive is. Because you do the identity politics thing, and people are out there that are promising all kinds of stuff that they just can't deliver because they don't have the power to do it. And Kennedy understands the power of the chief executive, and he understands, and he's been doing business with all of these departments. Actually, if I ever had a chance to ask him a question, I think the first question would be like, how many departments are you going to go after? All of them, because he probably knows exactly. He talks about that, like, is that minute he goes before he goes to sleep, he thinks about what he's going to do when he gets to start
Didn't
removing.
he say in one of the speeches, I'm going to call in the heads of all the major departments and have a talk with them as soon as possible?
Yeah.
And start here of cleanup, or I'm going to start legal proceedings against you?
Yeah.
Rounding the kids up into the living room to dish out the discipline.
Time for a little talk. What's
Okay.
up next, Carly?
Okay, the next one is a really big topic, and it's got two parts. The second part, we're going to look at the work that Chris and Nancy's been participating with of how are we going to clean up the Wikipedia page. That's going to be the second part of this. But the first part of it is the bigger picture of this, of how is it that so many media companies are all working together with practically the identical message. And they've been doing this since 2016 and a lot prior to that. But, the legislation changed. So, and Kennedy has looked at this, he's gone back and talked to the beginning of this post-World War II, around 1948 at the beginning of the CIA and Project Mockingbird, Wikipedia. I'm just going to give real overview so we can decide which pieces we want to talk about this. Wikipedia calls Project Mockingbird is still a conspiracy theory, even though the Church Committee in the 1980s had huge government hearings on it, and it was fully admitted to that it existed, that there were at least 40 top journalists who were on the CIA payroll that were getting stories leaked to them that were, classified information that Trump would have been taken to court for releasing classified information to people who didn't have the proper security clearances, so that they would leak the stories and they could make the points they wanted to make. And then after the legislation, after they got shut down in the 80s, they said, well, I got a better idea. Let's leak it to the foreigners. And so let's put it in the European papers because we're not restricted from talking to them.
They're talking about cleaning.
And then the New York Times, they said, well, go talk to this guy. You know, they give them heads up of who to talk to, and then they could report because it was coming from outside the country. So they're playing just right next to the rules and not observing the intent of it. And so, you know, you'll hear Project Mockingbird. We can talk more about that in specific. Kennedy has several good videos on this. And then, you know, how this filters down into why it is so hard to get coverage of Kennedy and why they're working so hard to keep him from hearing that he is an admirable person and that he has admirable ideals and things that he's working for. Okay. Mark, do you have a clip?
Yeah, so I'll introduce this. So what Carly was introducing is our main topic. So the main topic is a question of a number of things that have come out from the campaign. I'm going to do this kind of clumsy transition. We've got a little piece of artwork I want to try out. There we go. So we're transitioning. Nancy, you got it. All right, you ready? Okay. So what we've got is a clip. Let me share this screen. We'll be better at this in the future. This is the. This was something that actually we're going to kind of go in reverse order with some of these. This is out last night.
The problem is today that is frightening is that with AI, with artificial intelligence, and with all of these surveillance, like facial recognition systems, the satellite systems that are now, I think we're going to have 415,000 low altitude satellites where they can look at every square inch of the earth at 24 hours a day. We're all under surveillance. Your GPS, your cell phone is spying on you. We're carrying around these devices that are all spying on us, or all have the capacity to spy on us. And of course they are.
To what end?
The thing that's financing most of this are commercial and mercantile interests. I mean, I'm sure you've had this experience where you say, I need a better mattress. I can't sleep at night. And then 20 minutes later, you get this, a bunch of mattress ads on your cell phone. Well, they're listening to you. If you are doing something that involves dissent or disobedience to government mandates, it's quite possible that there's some government agency that's keeping track of that.
Have you
experienced
any retaliation in the since the pandemic? Have you seen any overt forms of retaliation against you by the intelligence community?
We come under attack by bots almost daily at the Children's Health Defense, but you don't know who's orchestrating it. It's all kind of obscure and invisible. Now, the CIA technically is not supposed to be spying on Americans in America, but the way that they get around that is they use the Five Eyes, which are the intelligence agencies from our 5 top allied countries, to do the spying, and then they share the information with the CIA.
Who are these people beholden to? What is their ultimate MO?
There may be no sinister motive at this moment in history. The problem is, and this is a solid rule, any power that the government has, it will ultimately abuse the maximum extent possible. And it will never give back voluntarily. So now the question is, they may not be doing anything bad with it now. At any moment, that could change. If you like this video and you want to help me become president of the United States, go to Kennedy24.com and donate now.
Wow. That's a powerful one. And that's, the end of this idea of who can we keep an eye on? How can we keep track of what's going on and influence people because we know what they're doing on minutia? Snowden came out talking about they're spying on you. And, I've heard, and he got thrown out of the country for it. And if he comes back, he's up for treason because he told us the truth. and it's very evident. I've heard people who know nothing about technology saying, isn't it kind of spooky that you just mentioned something to somebody and the next day you're getting these ads? And that was a couple of years ago. And it keeps getting stronger, and they're monitoring. There's a lot of accusations that cameras come on if you're not blocking them or listening into audio. And we have no way of knowing other than to throw away the cell phones or at least the smartphones. And it's, there's a question of that we're offered this great technology, we're buying it, we're using our money to buy this stuff, and then it's being used to surveil us. And it's really scary stuff.
I've got something to say on this one I'm going to direct some people to a particular podcast episode on the Sean Ryan Show. He interviews a cybersecurity expert who started out in his younger years as what they refer to as a gray hat hacker, which is someone who doesn't really follow a moral or ethical code when it comes to how they apply their talents. They'll just do whatever benefits them, kind of like a rogue. And he eventually kind of developed his own moral and ethical boundaries as he got older and decided to become a white hat hacker and start to help solve some of the problems online. And that led him down a career of cybersecurity. And he goes on to talk about many of the different devices that are anyone with any technical ability can set these up and program them and utilize them. There are various surveillance, monitoring, and interception pieces of equipment that you can put together for $20 with about an hour's worth of coding. And, one of these devices, just as a small example, so I don't digress too far off the topic, is he can sit out in a van if he wants to, and he clicks this thing on, and it reads everybody's Wi-Fi names, and it creates a secondary Wi-Fi name, and it broadcasts that. And so anyone who tries to connect, say, for example, the way that would look on my end is I would see two Wi-Fi names with the same name that are both named after the one that's mine. And if I try to connect to the wrong one, then he's got my password, which means now he can get into my Wi-Fi router. And he's just sitting in the van off to the side of the road. And it gets crazier than that even, but he can even intercept the radio signals from wireless keyboards. So from the street, he can see what you're typing. And those aren't secured connections. So he doesn't even need to really hack into your Wi-Fi at all to get your passwords. All he has to do is listen in to the radio frequencies coming from your house. Your refrigerator, your smart cameras that connect to your phones that you can monitor what's going on outside your house, or see, your little Ring door cameras. All of those things are susceptible to a piece of technology that you can equip yourself with for $20 with about 8 hours worth of training if you have the ability to understand any of it. And so the degree at which the surveillance state is able to implement intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance on the public and intercept and, essentially censor communications is probably just monumentally greater than what we could do with hodgepodge pieces we get from Radio Shack.
Which podcast? What was the name of the guy on that podcast? I found the podcast. What was the guy?
Oh man, I'm feeling.
Okay, why don't we put that into the text under the different videos?
I'll get that in there. It's a fascinating. But now he's employing his efforts to track down sex traffickers, and that kind of led me into the Sound of Freedom movie.
So let's save that for another. We've been going on quite a long time, and I'm being reminded by others in here that we might want to, this is such a big topic. I think we're going to hit on it other times, and let's get into some of our Wikipedia efforts.
Okay. Well, I actually do have a little bit more I wanted to add to this. So, if you don't mind, we'll kind of continue on a little bit. There was a guide to understanding the hoax of the century. Let me. I got to pull that up.
Send a link.
There we go. Yep, there we go.
Oh, you sent a link.
So, so this discussion is kind of large because what had happened this week is the campaign had released a number of different tweets. They weren't exactly the same items, right? So what we had is we had a tweet out about how the federal disinformation mop-up, how they're trying to, corral disinformation is really destroying liberal democracy. And then there was another tweet about this particular article that we're showing here, about this article that was written by Jacob Siegel that was quite good. It was really well researched. It describes quite a lengthy history of some of the how the Russiagate thing took place and some of the other how the Obama allowed the propagandization of American citizens because of a passing of a certain bill, and then they came out and had some discussion on Operation Mockingbird, and then this particular clip that we had just seen on the surveillance state. So if you kind of pull those all together, it kind of wraps up as a kind of an overall theme that the campaign was talking about this week. And so in this particular case, I just want to kind of bring in this tweet that Mr. Kennedy sent out, how the U.S. government's disinformation enterprise is destroying liberal democracy. He says, I'm not exaggerating. Read this monumental article, and I would have to stop sharing, then I've got to share the article. But it's written by Jason Siegel. Here, give me a second here. There we go. A Guide to Understanding the Hoax of the Century. Now, this is a long read, and we were trying to tear it up and maybe provide some clips out of it so that kind of digest it. But it's just you really have to read it. It's too big and it covers too much territory. But it is a very good read, Mr. Ken. It was actually published out March 28th of this year, but it's very topical. So I would recommend. Any comments on this?
Okay. Do you want to jump just to the end and let's read the conclusion?
Sure. And it's a long way down, so I'll just.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's a big article, but it's so well detailed.
Looks like my morning breakfast.
Faced with the apocalyptic threat of the infodemic, we are led to believe that only superintelligent algorithms can protect us from the crushingly inhuman scale of the digital information assault. The old human arts of conversation, disagreement, and irony, on which democracy and much else depend, are subjected to a withering machinery of military-grade surveillance. Surveillance that nothing can withstand and that aims to make us fearful for our capacity to of our capacity for reason. Okay, that looks like something well worth reading.
Yeah, I'm going to put that in the chat again.
There's so much good information, and I love so much of what he's putting out. And when he tweets, it's not the snarky remark. It's not the pithy one-liner. He's saying, go read this. It's going to take you 15 minutes, maybe 20 to read it and think about it. It will change your life. It will change your perspective on things so that you can act from a position of being informed. And these aren't difficult things to read. They're just, you just got to listen to it and recognize its relevance to what's going on.
And so I just grabbed an article from, I don't know if Helsinki Times been co-opted by the CIA or not, but just a quick article kind of describing Operation Mockingbird for those that maybe aren't quite familiar with it. It's an actual thing that happened, and it's, well documented. It's not a conspiracy theory. During the Cold War, U.S. Central Intelligence Agency launched this operation. It was, intended to, provide or to foster, good coverage for America, right? It was, we were in the middle of a Cold War, stuff like that. And so, it's a real thing. But the problem is it didn't stop. And that was one of the points that the campaign had been trying to, bring out this week too, is that this thing is still ongoing. And that should be a concern for all of us.
And, when you look at this, don't go to Wikipedia. This is the type of things that Wikipedia. Do you have a clip of what Kennedy's page on Wikipedia looks like?
Yeah, we're ready to go to that. Let's take a look at that.
Because Chris, step in here as soon as you're ready to wrestle control of this.
Well, I had one thing to say about Operation Mockingbird, real quick.
Okay.
And that is that the 77th Psychological Operations Battalion in over in Europe, that was perfect example, highlighted example of Operation Mockingbird being deployed in another country against another country's population.
The history on it, I've got a lot of notes here. I was prepared to talk about today, but we didn't go there. This is a huge topic, and I think we'll cover more on it in little bits and pieces. But if you're interested right now, just do a search on it, preferably not using Google engine, because they won't necessarily send you to the ones you want to be seeing. And stay away from the biggest mainstream sites on it. But there are official sites that have a lot of it. And if you have a question, compare it to 2 or 3 other ones, because you can learn how to filter for the information that seems to be there all the time. So let's take a look here at the Kennedy.
Well, so I think what's going on here, there's an issue with the page, and Nancy and Chris are here to talk about that specifically. Those two guys have been, those two folks have been working on this and know a lot more about it. Chris, do you want to jump in and tell us what's taking place here?
Let's start by reading some of the parts that you found offensive that started you down this path too.
Yeah, so the first thing I should mention, like as soon as I saw something that was wrong, I stopped reading, or something I was at least really skeptical of. I stopped reading to look into it. So the only part of the entire article that I've read is the first paragraph. I have no idea like how right or wrong, accurate, inaccurate, any of the rest of the article is. But I'm trying to get the first paragraph changed. So there's 2 claims. Is there any way to, okay, there we go. I'm looking at myself instead of the page. So there's like these 2 claims. He is known for advocating anti-vaccine misinformation. And, that's, he is known for advocating public health related conspiracy theories. So then I look into like the evidence that's provided here with those citations, 1 through 4 for the vaccine.
Can you scroll down, Mark?
Education.
Is that all the way to the bottom, Chris?
Yeah.
No,
So-
I'm talking about the first. I'm talking about the
Okay,
first
were you
paragraph.
talking about the references or just?
You can click on them from there if you want to.
Oh, okay.
But you'll see like there's like pretty much all the so this Scientific American. Let's just open the first one because the first one's pretty representative of how all of the evidence, like what's wrong with all the evidence.
Try to make that bigger.
Open
Can
it.
you
Oh,
click
actually open the article.
This one here?
Yeah. Yeah, so all these things in here, it's like all these articles are like smear articles, and they're really missing like citations to like, is there video of him saying this stuff? Is there audio? It's just like journalists just
An
saying
opinion
this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so if you go up, this is a subtitle. His anti-vaccine credentials date back to 2005. It'd be nice if there was a citation there, but it's a subtitle, so we'll skip it. But go down so we can see like the first paragraph here. So, so in the third paragraph, let's hope Trump drops, blah, blah, blah. For more than a decade, Kennedy has promoted anti-vaccine propaganda, and there's no citation. And this is just consistent throughout a lot of this evidence. So, like, maybe he has promoted anti-vaccine propaganda. I just don't know. Like, so who's the author of this article? Like, am I just supposed to take like Seth Nukin's word for it? Because like I don't care like what anybody just says somebody else is saying. Like I don't care about like any hearsay or like word of mouth supposed facts. Like it just doesn't mean anything to me. It's like, okay, you know, we'll note it. I'll note it, but like, you know, if there's video of RFK Jr. saying, you know, I'm really anti-vaccine, then great. Okay, like that's the video. That's what should be linked there, not this. And then there's like a couple of Guardian articles, and it's the same thing with like the conspiracy theory stuff. There just isn't. But anyways, yeah. So the Wikipedia.
Okay, can I just ask you a question here?
Yeah.
In any of the references that you saw, are any of them actually quoting his books where he's written in great depth his opinion?
Or
any of his interviews?
Is more than 20 books, you mean?
Yeah.
No, there's one that quotes him at some, which is really weird. So he's supposedly at some like rally or something, you know, like we watched his rally there at Greenville, South Carolina earlier. So it would be something like that. I think he was in like Arizona or something, supposedly. But that's the thing. Like, why do I even have to sit here and say supposedly? So you're telling me a journalist just forgot to like turn their cell phone on and record RFK Jr. talking about, I forget which one it is, the conspiracy theory or the anti-vaccine thing. But I mean, there's another problem with this too. Like, and this goes to speak on how difficult it's been to get this changed. So the claim is that he's well known for those two things, but that would require you to show me like a poll of like how you know RFK Jr., not going to articles of like journalists just like saying these things about him. So the actual claims themselves make no sense in that regard. Like the evidence doesn't support the actual claims being made at all. And then, you know, the claim that they're trying to show, you know, he is a conspiracy theorist, he is anti-vaccine, are just, again, if you're, you know, again, if you're into just like, I can go write up an article saying Joe Biden is unfit to be president, he should be removed from office today. Like, should all of America just believe my word for it because I posted it on Substack? No, they shouldn't. I'm not a medical
what if
doctor
you were
or
quoting
whatever.
somebody's opinion piece? Would that make it okay?
I don't care for opinion pieces.
No, I'm just saying that's what they've done here.
That's how they do it.
You know, just to, as an analogy.
Is this even an opinion piece? I don't even know. So there's a list of stuff like I won't care for, like The Guardian is linked, is cited for his evidence, but like I've given up on The Guardian. I never open their articles anymore. But you know, for this, it's important. Like maybe they did put out some like good journalism, but that's just not the case. Again, it's just
Chris, I may jump in. Well, a couple things. One, our friend Seth appears to be going back to about 2011, being a very pro-vaccine type of guy. So that's his gig. That's how he makes his living, apparently. But the other thing I wanted to, jump into was where are we going to go, with this in the future? I mean, this is a lot of, they drag us down. Oh, actually, the other thing I wanted to get into first was you guys had had a problem editing the page, and so could you talk a little bit about that? You wanted to get in, you create an account. You and Nancy both try to create an account. Maybe they have established rules for this, or maybe if we want to maybe do an edit, there's a way to do it. And then they somehow have employed some sort of process to avoid anyone being able to come in and edit it.
Yeah, so I'll have to go soon, but quickly. So there's the talk page that, like, there's the talk tab. If you want to go back to the top of RFK Jr.'s Wikipedia page, you'll see a talk tab. You can click on that. Normally you can edit, or you can like make suggestions to edit the article because it's I forget the word they used. It's like semi-controlled or something right now, and so like nobody can just go in and change like Martin Luther King Jr.'s or like Donald Trump's Wikipedia page, right? Some of them are
Can you
kind
go
of
to that,
controlled
Mark?
like that.
Back to the Wikipedia page.
I'm pretty sure. Hang on.
so it sends you to, so you have to just put up with the talk tab and make suggestions there. But the problem with that is, and the problem that I ran into, well, I ran into multiple issues. One, even if I put up a suggestion, I can end up having like a full discussion with a bunch of people who can't actually edit the article. It's just a bunch of other people who have an opinion on my changes. And it's like, I don't care. Like, even if all of us were talking in there, what we all think is basically irrelevant because none of us can actually change the article. None of us can make the edits. So, like, I don't care. I wouldn't care to convince people who can't change the article one way or another.
Who can change it?
Yeah.
So you have to be, so there's only, right, so there's another thing that happened. They ended up archiving that whole discussion and never engaged with me. And then, so all that got archived about the first paragraph. And then the whole article got, it's now under like a protection thing. So
I see there's a lock here in the upper right.
Yeah, so only 2 types of people. Basically, you have to have a certain role. Basically, you're either an administrator or like an experienced editor is what the support guy, Wikipedia support phrased it as. So that requires 500 edits on Wikipedia to become like an experienced editor. So like, I'm not about to do that. But yeah, so right now, those are only 2 types of people who can do it. But fortunately for us, well, I mean, 1, I have a lot of willpower on getting this thing changed. And 2, the view history tab, there you can see like a list of names about who's doing what on the article. So like the guy who, you know, put up the protection thing, I just sent him a message last night. And so, you know, I just said like, hey, I'm trying to get the first paragraph changed. Could we have like a discussion sometime about it? It's like, would you be up for a discussion on it? And then, you know, but that's one guy. There's probably, you know, I'm going to probably have to convince, I imagine, like 3 or 4 of the administrators, admins who are like consistently looking at this article and working on it to get those 2 claims. I mean, I haven't seen any evidence, any strong evidence that either of those 2 claims should be in the article. So I think they should just be removed. But if there's video or audio of RFK Jr., you know, being like advocating for public health related conspiracy theories, then put the claim back up there, link that evidence. Great. But
there isn't any.
You know, yeah, I don't see it. So like, then it shouldn't be up there. Exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm still working on it. I'm still, you know, trying to reach out to some people. Hopefully, again, some of these editors, admins, you know, are game to like play ball and just have a discussion about this paragraph. And, like, hopefully we can get some movement on it.
What's really frustrating is that, you know, initially Wikipedia was the voice of the people. Anybody could go in and edit it. Anybody could say, no, I don't think you're wrong here. It's got the place where you can discuss it and come up with, you know, different ideas on what is our collective knowledge on this. And now they've got barriers to that. And they've got, you know, on other articles, they, you know, I saw a picture that was comparing Kennedy's pages to Vivek Ramaswamy's page. And there's none of this language of, you know, that's obviously opinion, you know, saying that he's, well, you know, he is known for anti-vaccine. He doesn't do anti-vaccine. He does safe vaccines and public health related conspiracy theories, which again, he's written whole books on this with thousands of footnotes in each one of them. And so how can you call a conspiracy theory? It's a summary judgment that will tell people, don't even bother reading what else he's done. Don't go look for other sources because he's a nutcase, which is not anything to do with what I thought Wikipedia's mandate was, is to try and be fair and balanced in how it's presenting stuff, and to leave that out.
And one thing I'll just say, I'm about to leave anyways, but like, there is video of him talking about vaccinations. So like, why wouldn't you have that as evidence up there, and then, you know, make a claim based off of, you know, what he actually says in those videos. But yeah, I don't know. Still working on it. Hopefully get it changed soon.
Well, I commend you on your diligence on this, and I think it's really important for, you know, I encounter more and more people who are very skeptical of any information that's on Wikipedia because of the number of important places where this seems to be the way they're doing things. They have like 6-8 citations there on that one sentence, but then few people actually follow them through to see what's there. And, you know, it looks Scientific American. It shouldn't, you know, they're not thinking it's an opinion piece or it's a hit piece. Oh, it must
Chris,
be true.
To help maybe ease your concerns a bit, I am aware that there's a number of different endeavors from the Kennedy campaign, as well as from Kennedy's personal lawyers, to issue out restraining orders to any of these companies that are doing anything that would basically defame his character and result in him losing an ability to make money. And considering he's a lawyer, the reputation about his ability to be rational and discerning is of utmost importance. And so anyone calling him a conspiracy theorist is exposing themselves to the liability of defamation. And so I know the Google thing, the YouTube thing, has already kind of started making some waves. I know it got shot down for now, but there's a whole number of other lawsuits that are in the pipes right now from Kennedy towards these companies that are doing this. And I wouldn't wager a gamble against the idea that he's already issued one to Wikipedia as well, which is probably why the page is locked. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Thank you for your efforts, Chris. I mean, this is really important. And I think, you know, people really need to be aware of this and to remind other people who are using Wikipedia as a source if this is the quality of what they're doing. And I think a lot of this ties back to this other discussion we were having on just the entire attitude of the media and who's influencing it and who are they really working for.
Yeah, when you think Wikipedia, you got to kind of keep Operation Mockingbird in mind, you know, because there is a lot of question about, you know, is this really public editing or not? A couple of things I would like to piggyback with this is that we actually have a group inside of Discord that is working. Chris and Nancy are heading up to that's working to try to correct the record on this particular issue with Wikipedia. But we are also, Mr. Kennedy gets a lot of community notes on his tweets, and so we have a team working to try to correct that record as well. And so we're spending a little bit of time on that. And so if you're interested in either of those, we have lots of work with folks.
Okay, just tying on to that, anybody who's watching who likes Kennedy or would like any of places on social media to be more truthful, please make posts related to this. Show with likes, thumbs up. Whenever you see something that you agree with, I'd like it to be if it's about Kennedy, but whatever is your truth, do that. And then, you know, just ask questions as simple as, are you sure about it? Or what are your sources? To people who are saying things that you think are not properly backed up by any sort of factual material. Because we can, you know, one way is just, really? Why are you saying that? You know, it's not that you have to get into a big debate with them, but just questioning people makes them think twice of what they're going to be saying. As part of grassroots.
All right. I think that about wraps it up for this week, unless there's any comments or questions.
No, good
I
discussion.
think we had a great meeting, y'all. Thanks for joining in.
Thank you.
Well,
If anyone wants to participate in anything after the fact, we've got the Discord server going on. It's always active.
And
All right.
also, I just want to say, you know, this is such a fun group to be. And anybody who wants to be on the show, if you're a member of our Discord server, we let the first few people who sign up to come on here can actually come and talk with us. Otherwise, we have discussions offline, and we're always having things of this caliber. We're not just talking about drivel. Every one of our conversations are people bringing in just brilliant thoughts, or just, I like that, I don't like that, and am I wrong here? And so we're having fun. So I hope you'll join us. Do we have our link? Do you have a banner or something that has how they can connect with us?
Yeah, I think we did we put that in the chat?
Why don't you put it up one more time as we're saying our final goodbyes here?
Which one? All right, I'm gonna
the Kennedy 2024 and the video clip that Christo made, right? Is that what you're talking about, Carly?
No, just the link to our Discord.
Oh, right. Sorry.
If we don't have it handy here,
I don't.
We will put it in the show notes for any of the places this is streaming.
Yeah, go to our YouTube or our Rumble or our Twitch channel. We have a link to join our server from there. Just search for Team Kennedy Volunteers on those channels. You can search on most Discord platforms for Team Kennedy Volunteers. Some, like Discord Me and was it Dishboard? We're listed. And I think you muted.
How do you spell Disboard?
Dishboard.
You said that some of these places that you can find us.
I put a link in the stream chat.
Okay.
All right. Well, then we're going to do a 20-second rollout, ending the stream. Thanks for watching today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.